Nanda landed heavily on uneven ground. The impact jolted her, but it wasn't painful. Groaning softly, she blinked rapidly, her eyes struggling to adjust to her surroundings. Slowly, the color swirls faded, revealing a dark, cavernous space. Towering shelves stretched endlessly around her, looming large. These weren't the simple bookshelves of Jimmy G's workspace. These were massive, monolithic structures of iron and oak, carved with Templar crosses and intricate geometric patterns. Dust clung to their surfaces like a second skin, and each shelf groaned under the weight of leather-bound tomes that radiated age and power. A pale, diffused light filtered through high, narrow windows, casting uneven beams onto the stone floor. It was cold here, the chill sinking into her fur. The air smelled sharply of iron and damp parchment, mingling with the faint tang of oil from long-forgotten lamps. Nanda rose cautiously, ears flattening as she sniffed the air. The weight of the silence pressed down on her, thick and oppressive, as though the room itself was holding its breath. Where are we now? She whispered, her voice trembling slightly as it echoed into the vast emptiness. Jimmy G materialized beside her with a faint shimmer, his robes rustling as he adjusted his spectacles. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of awe and concern. Fascinating, he murmured, scanning the towering shelves and the intricate carvings on the walls. This isn't just an archive, it's a repository of knowledge. Secrets, perhaps even forbidden ones. Forbidden? Nanda asked, her fur bristling. She didn't like the sound of that. Jimmy G nodded, stepping closer to one of the shelves. His fingers brushed lightly against the spine of a tome that hummed faintly under his touch. The Templars are known for their obsessive collection of artifacts and knowledge. Some say they amass treasures that predate recorded history. This must be one of their vaults. Nanda glanced warily around the chamber, her tail twitching nervously. The room felt as if it were watching them. Great, she muttered, her voice laced with sarcasm. Because creepy ancient libraries never lead to trouble. Jimmy G chuckled softly, though the sound was hollow. Indeed. And yet, I suspect this place holds the answers we seek, if we dare to uncover them. Obviously, Nanda said, her whiskers twitching as she caught a whiff of something ancient and powerful emanating from the towering bookshelves. She padded closer, her gaze tracing the spines of the countless tomes, their titles embossed in faded gold and silver, some adorned with strange symbols that pricked her skin with a sense of foreboding. The energy in the room was palpable, a tangible hum of secrets begging to be unearthed. But what kind of archive is it? She pressed, her ears swiveling as she tried to identify the source of the humming. Jimmy G stepped forward, running his fingers over the spine of a massive volume bound in iron and studded with tarnished silver. If I'm not mistaken, he said slowly, his voice hushed with reverence. This is a Templar archive. Nanda's ears perked up. The Knights Templar? The name sparked a flicker of recognition. She recalled snippets from Grace's history books, stories of the legendary warrior monks who had wielded immense power and influence during the Crusades. They were protectors of pilgrims, fierce warriors, and, most intriguingly, custodians of ancient secrets, and, if the legends were to be believed, seekers of the Holy Grail. She turned to face Jimmy G, her mind racing with questions. Why would we end up here? What does this have to do with the anomalies? And what exactly were the Templars protecting? Jimmy G adjusted his spectacles, his expression unreadable as he considered her questions. History leaves echoes, Nanda, he said, his voice low and resonant, and those echoes hold clues to the mysteries of time and space. The Templars, shrouded in legend and whispered rumors, were more than just warriors. They were scholars, explorers, and seekers of forbidden knowledge. It is said they possessed secrets that could reshape the world, secrets that could alter the very fabric of reality. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the archive, taking in the endless rows of ancient texts and strange artifacts scattered amongst them. Perhaps, he continued, his voice laced with intrigue, they stumbled upon fragments of the very phenomenon that has ensnared us, the temporal instability that pulls us through the ages. Nanda felt a shiver run down her spine. The Templars, linked to the Grail, guardians of forbidden knowledge, and possibly even aware of the temporal anomalies. It was almost too much to comprehend. But why? She murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Why would they be interested in such things? Jimmy G smiled enigmatically. That, my dear Nanda, is the question we must seek to answer. He gestured toward a nearby table laden with maps, charts, and aged parchment covered in symbols. Come, he said, his voice laced with scholarly eagerness. Let us delve into the secrets of this archive and see what we can uncover. Nanda followed him, her curiosity piqued but her mind wandering. As Jimmy began unrolling a particularly intricate map, she spoke, almost to herself. Jimmy G. I think I've seen a Templar before. He had this glowing circle above his head, and I'm pretty sure his name was Simon. Ever heard of him? Jimmy G glanced up, his brow furrowed in confusion. Simon? A Templar with a glowing circle? That doesn't sound familiar. Where did you see this? Simon? She shrugged, her tail flicking lazily. It was a while back. Somewhere strange. He seemed more interested in charming people and solving mysteries than guarding grails, though. She licked her paw, nonchalantly adding, Still, I think he would have given these Templars a run for their money in style. Jimmy G frowned, looking both puzzled and mildly concerned. A Templar like that? I've never encountered such a figure. Are you certain? Nanda gave him a sideways glance, her whiskers twitching with amusement. Pretty sure. But maybe he was just a trick of the light, or a story humans told themselves. Doesn't matter. Let's see what these dusty maps have to say. Jimmy G sighed and returned his focus to the scrolls. Humans do love their stories. But remember, Nanda, not all legends are fiction, and the Templars are far from harmless. She examined the maps, her eyes tracing the faded lines and symbols that depicted lands both familiar and unknown. She recognized Jerusalem, the Holy City, and the surrounding territories of the Holy Land, where the Templars had once held sway. But there were other maps, depictions of strange constellations, celestial alignments, and intricate diagrams that seemed to defy logic and reason. What are these? Nanda asked, her whiskers twitching with intrigue as her gaze roved over the intricate charts and diagrams. Jimmy G's voice dropped to a reverent hush. Maps of the heavens, diagrams of ancient mechanisms, and records of secrets long forgotten. The Templars sought to decode the forces that govern reality itself, time, space, and the mysteries of creation. Nanda's eyes narrowed. Do you think they succeeded? Jimmy G's expression darkened. If they did, it might have been their undoing. Knowledge like this comes at a cost. Some things are simply too dangerous for mortal minds to wield. He unrolled a brittle scroll, the edges crumbling in his hands. Look here, he said, his finger tracing faded inscriptions. This speaks of Azicard chalices, a vessel of immense power capable of healing, granting eternal life, and even bending the flow of time. Nanda's ears flicked back. The Holy Grail, she murmured, her pulse quickening. The pieces were falling into place. The knights in the castle, they were after it too. But why would the Templars care about it? Talking of the knights? Jimmy G, Nanda began, her tail flicking with frustration. Why was I with the Knights of the Round Table 1 minute, and the Knights Templar the next? They're not the same, are they? Jimmy G paused, then nodded, his expression serious. No, they aren't the same. But within the labyrinth of time, these groups aren't confined to their respective eras. The knights you're with, the Round Table Knights, are not figments of myth, but real men. Legends and warriors of their time. Their mission is one of honor and spiritual enlightenment. As for the Templars, they are a different breed altogether. Nanda's eyes narrowed. So, what? They just coexist in this labyrinth together, in different timelines? Precisely, Jimmy G said, his tone measured. Both groups are after the Grail, but for opposing reasons. The Round Table Knights seek it for justice, peace, and healing, to unite and save the world. The Templars, on the other hand, want to harness its power to manipulate reality and control the world around them. Nanda muttered, still processing. So, their paths diverged because of their intentions. But why now? Why am I seeing both of them? Is there some kind of reason for this? Jimmy G smiled faintly, his eyes gleaming with scholarly excitement. The labyrinth weaves its own threads. Nanda. It doesn't just show the past or future, it shows choices made, paths taken, and ones that could have been. If the Grail truly holds the power the Templars seek, then perhaps the labyrinth is showing you not only these two groups, but also the consequences of their quests. One seeks unity, the other seeks dominion. Nanda glanced at the books and charts surrounding them, her thoughts swirling. So this archive could have answers about how the Grail works, and how it connects to all this time distortion. Exactly, Jimmy G said, nodding. This archive could be the key. If the Templars uncovered its secrets, then we might find the answers we need to stop the temporal anomalies and understand the Grail's true nature. Nanda's gaze drifted towards a shadowy corner of the archive, where a faint, rhythmic clicking sound had begun to echo through the chamber. She felt a prickle of unease, a sense that something was watching them. "Jimmy G," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Do you hear that?" Jimmy G paused, his head cocked in concentration. "Hear what?" "That clicking sound," Nanda insisted, her ears swiveling towards the source of the noise. "It sounds like gears turning." Jimmy G frowned, his eyes scanning the shadowy recesses of the archive. "I don't see anything." But Nanda's feline instincts were screaming at her that something was amiss. She crept towards the source of the clicking, her every sense on high alert. As she rounded a towering bookshelf, she gasped. Before her stood a massive contraption of gears, levers, and cogs, constructed from bronze and gleaming obsidian. It pulsed with an eerie green light, its intricate mechanisms whirring and clicking in a hypnotic rhythm. Wires snaked out from the machine, disappearing into the shadows, their purpose unknown. "What is it?" Jimmy G whispered, his voice filled with awe and apprehension. "I don't know," Nanda replied, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. "But I don't like it." As they watched, the machine's activity increased. The clicking grew louder, the gears spun faster, and the green light pulsed more intensely. A low hum emanated from the contraption, vibrating through the floor and into their bones. Suddenly, a section of the wall behind the machine slid open, revealing a dark, gaping maw. A blast of icy wind rushed out, extinguishing the torches and plunging them into near darkness. "It's a portal!" Jimmy G exclaimed, his voice filled with a mixture of excitement and dread. "A gateway to another time." Before Nanda could respond, the humming escalated into a deafening roar. The spectral figures materialized from the shadows, their forms solidifying, their translucent weapons raised. "It's time to go," Jimmy G shouted, his voice barely audible above the cacophony. He grabbed Nanda by the scruff of her neck, but as he did so, he noticed a faint inscription etched into the base of the machine. "Wait!" he exclaimed, his eyes widening as he deciphered the inscription. It seems the Templars had a safeguard in place, a way to control the rift. Nanda, her heart pounding as the spectral figures closed in, glared at him. "What are you talking about?" "We don't have time for fools." "Look." Jimmy G pointed to the inscription. It depicted a series of symbols arranged in a circular pattern, each one corresponding to a different phase of the moon. "We need to align these symbols with the celestial bodies depicted on the ceiling," he explained, his voice urgent. "It's a celestial lock, designed to harness the energy." Nanda glanced up at the ceiling, where a faded mural depicted the moon in its various phases, surrounded by constellations and astrological symbols. "But how do we?" Jimmy G, his eyes darting between the inscription and the ceiling, quickly deduced the solution. "The book!" he exclaimed. "It's the key." He snatched a glowing book from a nearby pedestal, its pages fluttering wildly as he flipped through them. He found a diagram that mirrored the inscription on the machine, with additional markings indicating the correct alignment of the symbols. "Help me turn this lever," he instructed Nanda, his voice filled with urgency. Nanda, despite her fear, understood the gravity of the situation. She leaped onto a platform beside the machine and, with all her might, pushed a large lever, rotating the mechanism until the symbols aligned perfectly with the celestial bodies depicted on the ceiling. As the final symbol clicked into place, the humming reached a fever pitch, and the air crackled with energy. The spectral figures froze, their forms flickering as the rift began to collapse inward. "Now!" Jimmy G shouted, grabbing Nanda and leaping towards the swirling vortex. The world dissolved into a blinding white light, and they were pulled through the chaotic currents of time, leaving the Templar archive, its ghostly guardians, and the strange machine behind.